Thank you all for coming in today. I will start with a general observation that you might already know because you're working with AI already and maybe with agentic AI in general. But the most of AI project incorporation especially usually fails because of lack of data or lack of sufficiently quality data. This is also another true when it comes to data science project. And in fact, 87% of data science projects never made into production because data are usually sealed, incomplete, of poor quality. But especially because this kind of data that we all want access to are usually hindered in access due to privacy regulation, especially in Europe with GDPR and now with the additional regulations such as Data Governance Act, AI Act. And this made to us also when we started in 2018 with Aindo to create a solution that was about to give us the possibility to develop those AI models that we were specialized to develop in the early days. And then it became a product. So the product is the synthetic data that already in 2018 when we started was seen as the answer from Gartner and other analysts to push the adoption of AI system into the industry because it was pushing the availability of data, and it's now becoming more a reality more than a market opportunity also because of regulation in Europe. As I was mentioning before, especially Artificial Intelligence Act, which will be adopted finally next year, recognize synthetic data not only as an anonymized version of data, so a category of anonymized data, so a data that we can use also in compliance with GDPR, but it talks about synthetic data as a preferred data to train AI model, especially in those critical systems such as healthcare, finance, and telecommunication, because they are able to correct bias, to rebalance the data set, so to provide better quality data in general. But what is synthetic data? So although I'm sure that everybody knows a lot of data and AI, synthetic data is still something that is not well used in the industry due to the fact that there is no big push, especially in Europe, we are not developing a lot of AI. There's not a lot of companies that develops AI. So what we do is usually taking real data set and apply to them an artificial intelligence engines, which in 2 steps is able to collect all the information from the real data set, understanding all the statistical information, the correlation within the data set, tabular data set especially. And then, in a second step, oversampling from the distribution that he has learned into a totally new data set that maintains the statistical information while it is void of any sensitive information present into the real data set. In this, we have to make a big distinction between what is in general synthetic data and what we do with synthetic data, because synthetic data is any kind of data that is generated by algorithm and is not collected from the field. In our case, we exploit the generative AI to unlock what is already being collected, so we do not simulate. Although, using this kind of technology, it is also possible to simulate and create what-if scenarios, going in rebalancing the real data that I have with the new one. So making an example, if I want to fit with those points with a linear interpolation, what I would do is obtaining one curve. From which I would sample unit to get what is synthetic data, meaning additional data set that doesn't really care about what was inside as a granular level, but in general, it recreates in a fiddle way the statistics inside. And when you do it with n variables, with a lot of attributes, you need to of course compare different kind of statistics and different kinds of KPIs to be sure that the synthetic data sticks with what was the information inside the real data set at the overall level. Of course, this means that we have to perform the generation and the training, so to make control privacy mechanisms that are on top before the generation, so before the training starts, we have to fit the technology and the algorithms that are going to learn from the statistical information a priori to guarantee that also when the data is generated, it will stick to the real data, but it will not be an actual copy of the real data. So we do not want this to be an overfitting of the real data. And to do so, after the generation, we need to control also through privacy metrics and also through KPIs that allow us to say that the synthetic data is relevant to the real data. This means that from a quality point of view, so are the synthetic data good for what I want to do, we have 3 dimensions in which we need to evaluate them. As I was saying, of course, privacy is the first one, because otherwise I would use real data. Statistical fidelity and utility, which is kind of different from fidelity if my end goal is not making statistical analysis. Otherwise, of course, I would stick to the fidelity. But if I want, for example, to train additional AI models, I need to understand if the AI model trained on real data is performing in the same way of the AI model trained on synthetic data. So we check the model compatibility of the synthetic data set. This we do it after every synthesization, so the system perform a report and print a report about privacy, all the quantitative privacy metrics that we have, and all the statistical metrics that we check, and we print it after each generation to ensure that the system will not collapse during its operation. And this is not something, of course, that we check only ourselves with our measure, but we had also certification and we had to adhere to standards. Of course, there are not yet a lot of standards on the topic because it's a new one, but first certification that there is in Europe about guaranteed privacy, for example, Euro privacy certification, and we are the first company to obtain it in the synthetic data realm. And we do what we can also from a technical perspective. So on top of participating to tables of the IEEE and participating in technical tables with the European Commission to an Eurostat, we also wanted to check if our solution, also compared to open source solution, was the best one in preserving privacy and providing useful data. So we've been listed into the National Institute of Standards and Technology as the top commercial solution available at this time. But what can we do with synthetic data? Because at the end, of course, if I had real data, if I could use real data, I would always use real data, because this will always be a proxy of real data. But wherever it's not possible to obtain this data, so in realm and industries such as finance, healthcare, because these are highly regulated industry, it is important to have at least something that I can use. And in this case, whatever you do with real data, you can do with synthetic data. So since we are focusing on tabular data, because of course the technology started with the generative adversarial network to create synthetic images, we have specialized in tabular data because the use cases over this kind of data are the most important in the industry. So whether I want to share this data because I want to perform only statistical analysis outside of my department, or even if I want to use this data to train AI model and make maybe pilot or POC with different companies and I need to share this information, synthetic data today makes it a valuable and available solution also when it's about to healthcare system and medical companies. So insurances, of course, and healthcare insurances use our technology to share the data freely within their organization and also to obtain data from different sources, because like this, they can use and leverage that information to optimize the risk modeling that are internally developing. So we wanted so much privacy that organization put us in the most private location around there. But if you want to know more later on, we'll be here also today. So if you have any question also now, I'm here. Otherwise, I wait you there. Thank you.